In the last couple of years, Georgia has arguably become the most important swing state in the country in terms of media attention, in terms of Americans paying attention to a state which was long seen as a safe Republican state, which is now arguably even became a blue leading swing state. So we're going to be talking about why that is, how it was inevitable, and what both sides do not understand about it. So first, you could tell a lot of these people that talk about Georgia from both sides, Democrats and Republicans, don't know anything about this state, do not understand Georgia at all, and can't even pronounce things about Georgia correctly. For example, Atlanta Atlanta, most people you see on YouTube, and a lot of these podcasters say Atlanta. Atlanta does not exist. It is pronounced Atlanta. No one pronounces the second T in Atlanta. And I put it out on the screen because I saw this meme the other day and I thought it was absolutely hilarious because no one pronounces the word Atlanta. Atlanta does not exist. Atlanta, as well as DeKalb. There is no such thing as DeKalb County. It is DeKalb County. There's no such thing as Gwinnett County. It's Gwinnett, like internet, Gwinnett. You could tell many of these people clearly must not have a lot of black friends either. I know that a lot of these words are pronounced in AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English. Yet again, if you knew anything about this area, you should definitely know how to pronounce the counties that you're talking about when making a prediction and when making arguments about this state. So please make sure to understand the people who live here. Make sure to understand very key things that really matter to these people. So I'm going to be diving straight into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is what Republicans do not understand about the state of Georgia. So what do Republicans not understand about Georgia? So a major thing Republicans don't understand about Georgia is demographics. Many Republicans are in straight denial of the demographics of the state, as well as the Atlanta metro area as a whole. Many Republicans blame Donald Trump for Republicans' shortcomings and lackluster performances across the state, yet he is nowhere near the cause of the Republican Party's inevitable demise in the state. One could even argue that he's holding Republicans together in the state. Before we get into deciphering Georgia's electorate, we're going to talk about why this was practically unstoppable and go back in time to talk about the unbelievable things done to stop it. Oftentimes, the past shows us what's in store for us in the future and how we made it to the present. So we're going to reflect on that. On July 17th, 1946, a World War II veteran made history when he became the first black person to vote in his county as well as the Democratic primary in the state of Georgia. The Supreme Court had recently created more efforts to allow all Americans to have access to the right to vote, regardless of the concept of race. Yet, the black community in Georgia, as well as numerous other southern states in the Jim Crow South, was well aware that that was just a piece of paper that held actually no weight. Maceo Snipes knew he was risking his life, yet did it anyway, bravely. Unfortunately, the next day, four members of the local Ku Klux Klan went to Snipes' house and shot him in the back. After walking 3 miles to the hospital, he was left waiting 6 hours. By then, he needed a blood transfusion, which he was denied because of his race. He then died 2 days later. His murderers were also exonerated soon after. This story is not unfamiliar to Georgia and sadly ones of thousands in the Jim Crow South. Numerous others will be left a link in the description. Yet it speaks to a historical testament of the state and how the Ku Klux Klan, doctors, judges, the jury, as well as poll workers could all be in sync to stop the collective of descendants of slaves from voting. Yet the Ku Klux Klan knew well over a century ago what the modern Georgia Republicans found out recently about the political effect and power of black voters. Georgia has a long history of this, from black codes to the grandfather clause to the night voter registration and the runoff system, all designed with the intent purpose of disenfranchising black voters. That hard work that often came at the price of mass murder to keep Georgia's status quo in check wasn't made tirelessly without purpose. Yet, that very dark path in the state inspired a remarkably bright future. Georgia's demographics are changing, yet the Atlanta suburbs have changed overnight, and no place has changed faster than Henry County, the fastest left-trending county in Georgia. In 2004, Henry County voted for the Republican Party huge. That margin dramatically narrowed in 2008. What was the first major red flag was despite 2012 being a much more friendly year than 2008 for Republicans, most Atlanta suburban counties trended to the left, especially Henry County. Even more tremendous was Romney's spectacular performance in the suburbs, yet that did not translate to Georgia. Why did it not do that? Well, in 2000, Henry was only 14% black, yet in 2020, it was 48%. According to recent data, it's now 52%, a majority black county. Despite Democrats struggling in 2022 with turnout, Abrams still outran Biden in Henry County. In summary, Romney's dominance with white suburban voters meant nothing because they were overpowered by a growing black electorate. Not all of the Atlanta suburbs are changing as fast as Henry, luckily for the Republican Party, yet the point still stands for this region and Republicans' problems overall in the state. Yet this hasn't only happened in Henry. Nearby Rockdale and Douglas County have seen very dramatic shifts as well due to the same exact factor. Fayette is also a problem for Republicans because of the black population continuing to grow dramatically. Gwinnett and Cobb, much more populous counties, have dramatically changed demographically as well. Yet, unlike other Atlanta suburbs, they're diverse counties, with numerous coalitions rather than one. Yet, black voters are by and large the dominant group in them, followed by Asian Americans and Latino voters, who far outrepresent the declining white racial group in the area. Republicans have this myth of moderate suburban voters hurting them, and when looking at the demographics, the problem is they barely exist at all in terms of the population. The declining share of the vote they're getting is coming from the few of them that are left. It's apparent Republicans have two options in the state. One, black turnout dropping. This is a likely scenario that is what allowed Republicans to win and perform so well in 2022, causing a R+6 electorate. Two, to dramatically improve with black voters, which is extremely unlikely. Unfortunately for Republicans, black voters aren't swing voters, and that's the problem for the GOP. If those voters turn out, they're going to turn out for the Democratic Party. Luckily, Republicans are dominating in Georgia with the white vote, yet the population group is dropping dramatically. The sad thing is the white electorate is much larger than the population, and even sadder would be how Republicans perform if it was equal. With this, it's clear the Republicans are in a losing battle in Georgia when they mathematically can't win, at least assuming everyone votes. Republicans have blamed Trump and Trumpism for Republicans' dramatic fall in the state, yet without him, they've proven to even lose by more in federal races. A quick trip to the politics section reveals the real reason Republicans are losing rapid ground in Atlanta suburbs. The state is currently trending left primarily due to reverse migration, something that will continue to benefit Democrats. With this, it's clear that unless another major racial alignment takes place or black turnout absolutely craters, in the future, Republicans are on path for continuous and endless defeats in the future, regardless of the candidate they run. One of my favorite words that people always say to me is the math is not mathing. And when looking at the math and the demographic data, the math does not math to Republican victories in the future. And though the present looks very dark, it is clear that the future is going to be much, much darker for the Republican Party without some dramatic changes, regardless of the candidate they run. Even though Republicans' problems in Georgia are oftentimes amplified, Democrats have numerous problems in the state of Georgia as well. And we're going to be talking about what problems Democrats absolutely have in Georgia, which are oftentimes not talked about. And oftentimes, Democrats' chances in Georgia are overrated. And we're going to talk about that as well. Georgia is mainly trending left because of the black population increasing. Yet it's doing that in the other southern states, and those states are not trending nowhere near as fast to the left. Because the potential does not always equal results, something amplified in North Carolina, a state whose black population is even growing faster than Georgia, hence why North Carolina gained an electoral vote while Georgia did not. Yet Democrats continue to lose because they cannot turn them out and take advantage of that. Without them, there is no plan B and would cause an absolute collapse for the Democratic Party in Georgia. This is a map of all the counties Biden won in Georgia. This is a map of all the counties where black people are the majority of plurality in the state. Now we're going to put them side by side, and the picture becomes very clear that Democrats can't even win one county without their base of support in the state. The main problem for Democrats is they're entirely reliant on one demographic group, and they can't turn them out. they have absolutely no chance of winning, as we saw amplified in 2022. Georgia, and in particular the Atlanta suburbs, are only trending left because of that very reason. If turnout drops from them, the Atlanta suburbs will shift right because they themselves is what trended them left in the first place. Democrats have never found themselves in a situation they found themselves in Georgia. Georgia is an extremely racially polarized state. Without black voters, Georgia would vote more Republican than West Virginia and Wyoming. Democrats have found themselves in a similar situation that they found themselves in North Carolina in 2008. Even though in North Carolina they still do better with white voters, in Georgia they consistently lose because of black turnout. The trenches don't even describe how low they are, with a better comparison being the floor of the ocean. Like other southern states, that's not changing. In 2022, Warnock only won 19% of non-collegiate white voters in the state. There aren't words to describe how horrific that is. And even though Dems still won, it still proves the over-reliance on the black vote. Dems found themselves here in Iowa, where they were totally reliant on the working class, and without them, they have consistently collapsed in Iowa. Democrats are relying on an inconsistent demographic group. Black voters do turn out at much higher rates than Latino Asian American voters, yet excluding 2008, 2012, and 2020, at much lower rates than their white counterparts. In 2020, Democrats broke records with turnout and propelled themselves to 2 Senate seats and winning Georgia presidentially. Yet in 2 years, absolutely collapsed with turnout and lost huge in 2022 in most statewide races. Luckily, because of how fast the black population is growing, Dems can lower the bar for victory, yet the bar only lowers so much before it altogether collapses. In 2020, voters were electing the first black woman vice president, the first black man as senator. In 2024, there won't be that historical attribute. Luckily for Democrats, Kamala Harris and Raphael Warnock are in a much better situation than Joe Biden. Many view them as tools to steal votes in the black community, with no policy goal achievements from the Biden administration. Being from here, people feel betrayed and frustrated with Joe Biden and feel he has betrayed the black community and took their votes for granted. Those voters have seen Ukraine get funding, a hate crime bill for Asian Americans, and many numerous bills to protect the LGBT community, yet absolutely no policies for black people in particular, which has soured their perception of Joe Biden, especially consider they tolerated him from the beginning. Biden can't even win re-election without these voters. It has absolutely no chance of even getting close. Yet Democrats thinking Trump has no chance at winning in Georgia and numerous other swing states is absolutely delusional. Democrats' chances in Georgia is only as great as the voters that make it possible. Without them, Georgia is no different from its southern counterparts. Wasted potential. Voters don't care about anything except primarily black issues in the state of Georgia, and Biden has failed at that. These voters are anti-vaccine, anti-LGBT, and anti-supporting Ukraine, yet look past these major policy differences to vote based off race issues. With no achievements in that department, what reason do these voters have to turn out? Fear did not work for Hillary Clinton, and Joe Biden would be a fool to think it would work for him. History didn't even work for Warnock Abrams or for Beasley, North Carolina, as well as Barnes in Wisconsin. Even more consequential for Biden and Ossoff is black voters historically not turning out for white candidates. They don't have the same advantages and appeal that Barack Obama, Kamala Harris, and Raphael Warnock have. We know Georgia would have voted a lot differently without the help of Raphael Warnock carrying Ossoff in the runoff elections, and Kamala Harris, as well as the Black Lives Matter movement, carrying Joe Biden in general election in 2020. We've seen black candidates struggle to turn out black voters, as we saw previously to a lesser degree in 2022, of course. The math definitely benefits Democrats in Georgia, yet the math only helps when you have the proper calculations to count it. Democrats control their destiny, yet they have no plan if they lose track of it. There is nothing more scary than not having a backup plan when it's needed. Thank you guys for tuning into my first Blooper documentary. Let me know which state you'd like me to do next in the comment section and subscribe down below. It took a lot of time and effort to make this video with my schedule and moving to Japan recently. I'd like to thank my subscribers and consistent viewers for making it possible. Have a great day, you guys. Goodbye.
Just an old sweet song keeps Georgia on my mind.